Welcome, everyday fans. This is your host, Candace Cordelia, back with another great interview. And I am here with Joey Ace. And if you are not familiar with Joey, well, this is the perfect space for you to get to know the 5-star stud. Did I get that right?
Ooh, you totally got that right.
Awesome. How are you, Joey?
I'm good, man. I'm great.
That's excellent. It's been a minute. I mean, before we got into this introduction, we were just saying it's been years since we saw each other in person. And now things are opening back up, which is awesome. So I hope that we can reunite in person once again at one of these shows. But, this is also a great space for us to talk about your journey in wrestling and for more people to get to know your story, because within the past year, you've been in the spotlight, doing a lot of things at different promotions, but there's one particular event that we will touch on, which is the basis for this conversation. Because you hit me up and you were like, we need to talk about this. Which I agree, because I interviewed Mike Law, and now it's time to get your side of that story, that now infamous suicide dive at that ECWA show. So we gotta talk shop about that. But before all of that good stuff, tell us, who is Joey Ace? How did you get into the wacky and wonderful world of wrestling?
Man, how I got into the wacky, wonderful world of wrestling. Well, it's such a long, crazy, beginning. So I'm going to try to condense a little bit of it. Well, I started, I'm not going to give you the whole, oh my God, it's my passion, because that's boring. It's everyone's passion, right? Everyone loves it. But how I got in was, me and a bunch of friends were doing backyard wrestling, and I had this makeshift ring in my backyard when I was living out in Canarsie in Brooklyn. And my friend had a band, he had this amp, and after school we would be like, let's throw each other around and in the park. And we started doing it in a park. And then I'm like, let's just do it in my place. Let's just go to my backyard and do it, so we don't have to worry about cops. And that's a super condensed story. But then it happened to be where we built this platform ring. And my friend came with an amp. My other friend had a VHS video recorder thing. And we just started wrestling, and that's how it kind of birthed. And then from there, I graduated high school. Didn't do much with wrestling, kind of fell off of it, and went to one school. It was Gleason's gym, to see how much it was and what was the process. And it was $3,000. And I'm just getting out of high school, and I live in New York City. I don't have that. I grew up in the projects. So I'm like, man, $3,000, but it was $1,600 if you went to school. And I'm like, I don't really want to go back to school. I want to see, I want to get out there and make some money. But I was all heard about that part. And then I got a job, and I was working at American Eagle and then Abercrombie and Fitch. So then I cut my long hair. I had long hair at the time, cut it, shaved my face, and I was Abercrombie and Fitch floor model for a bit, and then became a personal trainer. Then started wrestling. And how that happened was I met a few friends who were also into it, and we started wrestling in Ace Pro Wrestling in New Jersey. And we wrestled on. We trained there for a bit, then transitioned over to Fight the World Wrestling in Ronkonkoma. And then once I went there, I met Angel Ortiz, and then we had a whole crew of other backyarders, those guys, and then we would travel every Tuesday and Thursday. And it was around 2009, going into 2010. We would make the trip from Midtown East. I would meet up with Ortiz, who worked at a Borders bookstore. We would grab some Dean and DeLuca coffee, jump in his car, and we would go wrestle, and we would train. And that's how, in a super condensed way, that's how it started. Wow. And there's a bunch of little stories in between that, but that's what it was. We were broke. We were had just change every time, and we would get 7-Eleven bagels to pay for gas, and go out there and do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 sit-ups, and then thousands of rolls, it felt like. And then we would just have matches. And then They booked us on a show, and then it was like one show after the next, and then it was like month after month after month, and then bam, like we just started. I started kind of going out off, and Warriors of Wrestling happened, and then these other promotions started happening, and yeah, that was the start.
Oh my gosh. And you throw out all the name brands. Like I'm inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, Abercrombie and Fitch, Tina.
Yeah,
It's like a blast from the past, but that it
yeah.
just shows how far you've come, seriously. And what was your first show like? I mean, going from backyard wrestling to some form of training to actually having your first match.
You know, I remember I was kind of stuck on this thing where I didn't know how to get into the business. So I didn't know how to get into pro wrestling. And so I would kind of like pay my way through. And it was like these guys that would set up shows and rent a building. And some friend of mine had, his name is Tom. He rented out this building, but we had to pay him. So we paid him to help rent out this building. And then we would get like our friends to like buy tickets. So we were like, it was like a traveling band of guys, backyard wrestlers, and we did a show. I remember, and it was with like a ring and everything. I remember the first time walking into this place and seeing a ring set up in the building, and I was on it. Like I was on this show, and I was like, "What? This is crazy!" And me then, like 19-year-old Joey was like not knowing now, was like, oh my God, I was so anxious, but didn't know the feeling. But I remember just being like, oh man, this is awesome. But then going like just being so scared, and then music would hit, would walk out, and it was just like it all went away. But I remember that first time, and then I remember the first time like pro wrestling. Like, okay, like you got trained, you got some years under you now. And then I remember going up against my first one-on-one was with Angel Ortiz in Ronkonkoma, and that was fun. I remember like we had like this whole match, and we were training that match so it wouldn't miss a beat, and it's probably my favorite match. Going like thinking about it and going back, that it was like it didn't miss a beat. It had such a flow, and I remember the production of that match was pretty sick because we had like the commentary, and they had like a little TV syndicate deal like out in Long Island. FTW did, and then they would put out some dope DVDs. So like, remember those times when you sell DVDs at the merch table for the events? Yeah, and I remember like, oh, this is gonna be on the DVD. This is so awesome, and like seeing your name behind it, and like, oh, Versus doing it for this, and it was like, this is dope. But those are my like big two that I like really remember. Like, oh man, this is pretty legit.
What did your friends and family outside of the wrestling business think about your foray into this?
Um, to be, oh man, to be so honest, like I didn't care what anyone thought or if I had anyone's support. Didn't care. I didn't care. I would do my shows. I would work out as much as I could. I would try to eat. I was too busy thinking about how I was gonna survive, doing all of it, than the emotional part of having a support system and thinking of what people thought of it. I didn't care. Like I just didn't. And I felt like if I spent time with that, I wasn't gonna get to where I needed to be. So it was very like, hey, you with it? You with it? Cool, I do it. If you're gonna come to a show, come to a show. If you're not, I'm not mad at you. Like either way, great. If you come, amazing. Mwah, love you. But if you don't, it's fine too.
Yeah, yeah. And New York City, most people know, is a brutal city, regardless of what you're doing, whether if you're wrestling, you're just trying to make a dollar, you're going to school, whatever. It's not for the faint-hearted, especially if you're, working with a certain limited budget. So how was it on a daily basis getting through, putting food on the table, doing training, doing shows, personal training? What was an actual day like for you?
You'll be the first person I actually come out in the open on a podcast or video call with this. when I first started, I was living in a 1 bedroom apartment in Rutgers Houses. It's a housing project in Lower Manhattan with my grandmother, who my mom at the time was super sick, super sick. Um, so waking up every day was to do what I had to do, which is like I would wake up at, I remember, like at the height. So I was working at Abercrombie, and then right across the street was a New York Sports Club I was at. So this is all the Seaport. So I would walk. I would get up at like 5, 6 a.m. ish around that time. Give or take, if I had a client at that early, like at 6, walk across, train my client, be at the gym for a bit, work out, have another client at 10, and then at 3, I would just go across the street and do my evening floor shift at Abercrombie and then go home. That was like a Monday. And then a Tuesday, I would do my morning shift at Abercrombie, which was from like 8, 9 to like 3, jump on the train, go to my boy, meet up with Mike, and then go to FTW and Long Island to train, and then come back home at like maybe 1 if I'm lucky, 1 a.m. to do the same schedule I did on Monday, Wednesday, and then Thursday. I had that, thank God, continuously for about a couple of years, but then I would go home, sick mom, my grandma stressed out. I don't remember me sleeping. I remember me sleeping in bits during that time, like any 19, 20, 22. I remember just sleeping in very short spurts, like just because I was also thinking about either A, wrestling, work, and then my mom being like a few feet away from me in the next bedroom, like, oh man, like, ooh, if she falls or something, or she, so it was very, uh, man, if I could say, I had a friend of mine say, you're so focused and you're blindly focused. I don't know how you do it. It's like, I don't know, you just do it. You just kind of wake up and just go, 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 go. So if I could describe my experience in New York City and then trying to do all of that, be a wrestler and make a living and try to put food on the table for myself, that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, it sounds at a young age too, very isolating as well because you're young, you're in the city. I'm sure you want to go out and have fun, but it
I
sounds like
did it.
you're just focused, like you said.
That was my fun.
Mm,
That was my fun. I didn't have like a urge to go, oh, let me go party.
mm,
Like I hated drinking. If I had a beer, oh my God, Joey's got a beer in his hand, and it was either a Stella or Coors Light or something light, and that was it. And I wasn't so much like into that like party life, and I picked my friends really like who I wanted to spend my time with. Like if you weren't working out, didn't work in the gym, or didn't have like or a girl that was like my type, I wasn't wasting my time. And like I always had like if I maybe I had a vice, it would probably be girls, but there was a specific type of woman that I wanted, and it was just like, all right, I'm just gonna go run around. Like she's got to have something that's like a redeeming quality that she has and very shallow, but it looks super hot. Or like, oh, she works in the arts or something that I could relate to. That if like, okay, I'm coming home late or I'm doing this, like you know what the deal is. Someone who didn't add to the stress, you know.
it is, yeah.
So, if yeah, I isolated myself more than anything, you know. So
Mm. Yeah. So with having said that, this pandemic probably wasn't that much of a struggle for you because you were used to that in your past, being isolating and being focused. Or correct me if I'm wrong, if you found more of a struggle in a different way during this pandemic.
it, so yes and no.
Mm,
Um, I love the being alone part and not having the pressure, maybe like in the back of my mind to go do something because you couldn't. Um, so I was like, great, peace. And it was always like, peace. Um, the other struggle was maybe the stuff creeping up from past things, but more of a isolating world where I can't work out the way I want to with weights. I don't have that gym atmosphere. That hurt me. And not being able to go wrestle when I wanted or wrestle for a crowd I have anything to look forward to
Mhm.
was a lot of, oh man, this is my mind. I don't know what to do. I'm in my thoughts. And what I did to counter that was, let me just make a documentary with my friend David. Let me go make a t-shirt design and sell it. Let me go talk about old wrestling matches I hadn't watched them and then do Facebook lives on them. Let me just promote these other possible shows and possible fights I can have, uh, and do that to keep me occupied. And I also still train clients, so I would leave, go train clients, come back home, play with my dog, walk them, and that was kind of like my routine. And then go work out in the park and just do pull-ups, push-ups, squats, and then make my food because I was like, all right, I'm not gonna eat out. I'm not gonna spend that money, so let me just go to the supermarket. And I had a flow, and I tried to talk to a lot of people, but then I stopped doing that and only kept a certain amount of people that I enjoyed talking to. That kept my spirits up, and then I kept their spirits up. People are in their heads a lot, and then I'm kind of I got where I would talk to someone and I would be talking in a circle, or they would be talking in a circle, and it annoyed me. And I was like, I can't. And I would kind of tune myself off or shut myself off and put the phone away. And I'm like, okay, I need to have another line of focus. And that became like the wrestling and training people became a focus, but I had to take that and go a different route with it. So that's what the pandemic kind of like. That's the yeah and no.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. So going back to, your training, you're getting your start in wrestling, you're getting more experience. What was that journey like? Because obviously, as time goes on, you're not just solely wrestling in the New York area. You have to bust out and go to different places and you're traveling. So what was that like for you getting to these different cities and states and really seeing wrestling in a much more broader spectrum?
To be honest with you, the way I saw it was I was like, wow, there's like groups of characters,
Mm.
but they don't stick. And then I reflected on my own, like, what makes me stick is really I'm portraying this character. All of these guys are portraying something, but nobody's sticking. Why? And that's what it was. It was a realization of me looking around and going, what is anyone not doing? And then that made me think of what I should do. And it made me because I was like, oh, I'm the 5-star stud, yeah, or I'm the salty dog. And it was like, what makes you that?
Mm.
And it was like, what makes this guy that person? What makes that person that person? And you would talk, I would talk in the car, talk backstage, talk, and it was like they would tell me, and then, but I was like in camera, like when you watch them, it never like you would see little bits and glimpses of it, and I would always study it, and then think, go back home and like watch wrestling, and go, that's why this person's that, that's why this person, I get it, and the traveling around made me like link it, like, oh, okay, um, now I could build the character. I know where it comes from
Mm.
because you got to leave home a little bit to kind of know where you come from to see others. And then the different crowds and how to work with those different crowds, and then trying to relate to them in a way that still is pure to you. And when you go home, you feel like, oh, tonight was a night. Like I had that feeling. That helped me with that. Like that's what I got from the traveling around the different spots.
Wow. And that's something, it's a conversation or a topic of discussion, I should say, that I've had with other wrestlers on and off throughout, the past year and a half in terms of the character and specifically even promo work. It's funny because even earlier today, I was talking with another wrestler about this, how I don't know if it's a generational thing, and definitely give your thoughts about this because I'd love to hear your perspective. But in terms of doing promos, you know, some wrestlers don't even like to do promos. Some love it and really want to hone in on their character and their gimmick. What are your thoughts even on that in terms of the importance of the promo and for a wrestler to be really able to know who they are, not just their character, but themselves, because it's all infused in one another?
Okay, that's so pro wrestling is entertainment. It's let's pull the veil down. It's entertainment, and it's a we use our bodies to entertain you, to help to make kind of like a thing of you forgetting where you're at and you're being invested in a character or a match or a fight, you know, however you want to call it. And I think the importance of a promo or promos or character is you need to be relatable to an audience. Audience is to grab you and relate to you. If they don't relate to you, they don't care. And if they don't care, they're not going to buy a ticket to see you. And thus, you don't make any money, nor the promoter does. And why the promoter should book you if you don't promote yourself or don't have some kind of following. So I think promos are really important. And if you watch things across the board, you see guys like if you have this era now, it's Conor McGregor, it's Logan Paul, it's Floyd Mayweather. These guys, they make money off the talk. I know growing up when I watched wrestling, I watched the promos more than the match. I was amped up watching that more than I watched the match itself. If you took out for me the promos and why are people going at it, it feels for me like it's just gymnastics, like a fight scene from a movie, and movies are cool, but I'm not knocking movies, but it's like that's what it feels like for me. So for me personally, like I love like when people are like, oh, I hate him because of this, or I hate, I don't like this person because of this. And I think, a part of me is like lazy about it. Like I think guys are lazy about it. No, I don't like cutting promos. No, you're just lazy. You could go in there, you're on a show and it's like, okay, it's me against you. And maybe I don't know who you are, but I'll find out something about you on your social media or something that I don't like. And depending on what, I'll talk about that. And then I'll rag on it. And then you go at it and you make a story out of it. And then when you have your match, the story's already told. So there doesn't have to be this Google Gaga backstage of this, that, and the third. No, you said this about me. I'm mad. Let's go. And then you insert your things and tell your story based on what your promos were. Then there's no like, it's not just a wrestling match. It's something we're all invested in. So I think promos are important. But I'll go off on that for hours.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Seriously, what's one thing about wrestling that actually irks you today?
If I could reel it back because you asked me in a message, the thing with Mike Law, me and Mike Law.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Here's what irked me. Irks me. Guys, like it's a GIF generation, so everyone does like the GIFs and puts that up. Yeah, there was a part of us, a big part of us was like, we need to do something big, right? And we were thinking about something big, but not knowing it. And we were in our match, we thought of something big. He did actually, and we did that big. How big we thought it was gonna be, not that big. Something to go, ooh. We didn't know it was gonna go, ooh, million people watch it, end up on ridiculousness. Didn't think that was gonna happen. And TikToks and all this, like guys, talking about it. And what what happened was he dives through ropes, suicide dives. He tells me, yo, move out of the way. Comes through. I'm like, oh my God. I gotta protect him as much as I gotta like look like I'm throwing him or letting him go fall. And he falls like through chairs, through that chair. Bam. Wake up in the morning and there's all this hate. All that hate. All this hate. Other professional wrestlers too, hating on it. In pro wrestling, you tell a story. And my story that night was to leave the ECWA champion and World One champ. Unify the championships. Mike's story was the same thing. And we didn't like each other. That was it. That's the story. So we're going to do everything in our power in that match to show the audience that we hate each other. And we did. What that turned into was this kid doesn't know how to do this. They're crazy. They're reckless. They're this and that. Blah, 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 blah. Cool. Fine. That happens everywhere. What irks me is the part where you see other guys do it and then go, oh, it was safe. That we're homies. And then the other person would go, oh, yeah, that person protected me the whole time. What? You just did a magic trick. It looked awesome, and you just bleh, bleh, vomited all over it, told everyone it was fake. Why? Why kill it? Like, why kill our thing, our wrestling? We just threw it on the ground and just let it happen. You didn't give it time to, wait, they really hate each other? Wait, he doesn't know how to work. Is that on purpose? Did he just let him just hit the ground like that so violently? Did she like, what? Like, F him. There's no that. There's the, all right, we just give it away. And if you noticed, I didn't give mine away. I didn't say, hey, I made it. No, that's up to you to decide. If I protected him on the way down or let him fall through there, guided him through that chair and made sure maybe he hit the ground a little harder than he should have. We don't know. I know I walked out champ. I walked out champ. That's it. And we meet July 31st. Me and him and Mr. Ooh La La for a triple threat for the women's Super 8 for the title. So, but that's what irks me, guys who just give it away.
I had to watch that. I can't even count how many times I watched it. I'm not gonna lie, mainly because I was just in shock that it happened, and I had to really just watch, the actual dive several times so it could just absorb into my brain. But I also, being the person that I am, very observant, I had to watch many times to get the crowd reaction, to see what Mike did, to see what you did, and to kind of piece it all together in terms of the storyline itself. And not many people would do that because, like you said, we're in the era of, some people say GIFs, we're in the era of that.
Crowd chasing.
Yeah.
To get like their little dopamine hit on their own Twitter, like, oh, look at likes. But it was somebody else did.
Exactly. And it's really funny you mention it in the way that you did. It's very profound because, and we talked about this a little bit before, a lot of people have asked Mike's opinion, but it sounds like not many people have asked you how you feel about it, especially, right. Yeah.
No one, really, no one asked.
And that's really fascinating because you were a part of it. You're definitely there.
I see people and they go to me, don't ask about it. Tell me what they think and how it was done and who they talked to in the car ride going to a show about it. But then, and I'm like, then why you don't even, what? Who's that Joey Ace kid? Where is he? Don't even ask me. Just look at me. Tell me a story about it. Like, oh, I wasn't there. I didn't know.
Why do you think there was so much blowback towards this specific move? And because you stated it very perfectly that it's been done before, but people have praised those moves or those times. And for this one, for some reason, it just became this viral sensation, but in a way that it sounds like you didn't expect, and perhaps Mike Law didn't expect as well.
We didn't expect it. We didn't expect that to happen. There was a lot of you know, it's the day and age we live in. People wanted it just something to talk about. Go, you know. But I think the reason why is they wanted to maybe jump on that clout train too, and have something for them to talk about. That's it. I gave people something to talk about.
True. I mean, even Cornette, he definitely had his thoughts about it.
You know, I wonder though. I wonder this. If you had Twitter and Instagram and Facebook in 1998, when Undertaker threw Mankind off the cell, what would have been said? What would have been said? Oh my God, he tried to kill him. He's unprofessional. He threw Mankind off. Oh my God, he tried to kill him. Like imagine seeing all of that.
And that's
and people you know. What are you doing?
It's so amazing. We live in this time, like social media is just, it seems sometimes to be the end all be all of everything, and including in wrestling. You make one move or you say one thing, and then it could be viral, it could be the topic of discussion for days on end. We live in a weird time. We really do. I mean, where do you think wrestling is going to go or develop within the next few years, especially post-pandemic?
I don't know. I think there's gonna be a big boom. People want to see wrestling. It's that hopefully that was enough time to get guys to maybe dial it back in a way where not dial it back in like work rate, but dial it back in kind of like character development and see what works, and then to go out there and experiment and go through, but also different genres. So it's funny because you had the cinematic stuff or guys just fighting in front of no people, and us filming our own stuff to get things going to kind of keep the ball rolling. And then now you see like what ICW or JCW doing the blood sport thing, but that was done already beforehand. Or like the no ring matches. Then now there's like cage matches with no ropes. So they're taking a lot of elements of like, you know, actually mixed martial arts and throwing it in there, but with different type of just different concepts, which I love. So I think it's just going to be like bigger and just more diverse with just everyone's ideas and seeing what like, oh man, this is dope.
Yeah. Would you ever do a death match? I don't know if you have in the past.
Oh man, I never have. Maybe with Mike Law.
Wow.
Maybe that'd be dope. Like a cage with no ropes and barbed wire, like hanging on the top, maybe, and then strung down. So when you hit the cage, you hit the barbed wire, and then you can't climb out of the cage. Oh yeah. Imagine that though. That'd be pretty sick.
That would be.
You can't climb out. You can't climb because there's barbed wire like through it, like just through the hole, like the chain links. Imagine that. Dope.
You got to do it then. That would just be the penultimate, the final end to this feud that you guys have going on, because it's
yeah. Or maybe that would just be a blow off in wrestling. Just that's it.
Exactly. Like I'm done.
That would be the death match of all death matches. No glass panels, none of that, none of the light tubes. No, just a cage. Have the ring set up, take the ropes down, just have barbed wire strung through it.
That would be
That's
sick.
It.
That would be really sick.
Yeah,
now I want to
just that, and we just fight. We just fight. No explosions, none of that. None of that like crazy. None of that.
That would be awesome. What's one match that has been so memorable for you throughout the years? No, not Mike Law. We can talk about a different match if it applies.
Man, I had a few. But one that comes to my head because we're talking about hardcore and like deathmatch is Balls Mahoney in FTW, Fight the World. He like, we don't have a video of that. There's only pictures. Somehow the video's somewhere on some DVD. Maybe we'll find it. But I remember me going out there and I'd cut a promo on Jake the Snake Roberts and cut this promo where I had beer cans around my neck. And don't ask me why. I was young and stupid. And then Balls Mahoney came out and we threw down. And it was really cool because it was like, whoa, ECW. And I was like, I think about 23 at the time. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. It was that match. And another match was at ECWA with Joe Gacy, where I won the Mid-Atlantic Championship. And it was like in a hardcore match, falls count anywhere in the building. And we fought in the bathroom. Yeah. We fought in the bathroom. Took my head, put it in the urinal. It was really nasty. And yeah, that match was pretty awesome. Yeah. Oh wait, and then there's another one. Another ECWA one with Sam Shields. Yeah. And there was a part where he went to give me a T-bone suplex. And somehow my knee pad got caught in the turnbuckle. And when he went to throw me, he just fell, but I was still locked into the turnbuckle by my knee pad. And then just ripped my knee pad, ripped my tights from the inside. And I just like plopped down, like just nosedive into the canvas, still dangling on the ropes. And like John Finnegan's like taking me out. And I'm like, oh man, that just changed the whole match. T-bone suplex didn't happen.
What do you do in moments like that? Because you only have a split second to really think about it. I guess the show must go on, obviously.
Scream in pain. What do you think? I'm gonna stop. Hold on, wait. Quiet on set. Take. Hold on, let's start this again. just go.
Exactly. Let's go. Someone out there.
Again, you're trying to win the match.
There it is. Exactly. So, what are your hopes, or rather your goals, going into the second half of 2021?
There's a Warriors wrestling event coming up in August. That's going to have people in there again. I'm looking forward to that one. I just got shows sprinkled in between it. But I was thinking of heading down, but I don't think I'm going to head down. I'm just going to chill out.
Okay. Is your goal to work within one of the bigger promotions, let's say WWE, AEW, Impact, or are you just kind of doing your own thing and seeing where the chips fall?
Of course, that's a goal. But right now, I'm not like so. I like doing my own thing. Doing my own thing is great. If I got called to one of those big places, God willing, the money would be great. But I don't think I'll be doing my own thing. So I think right now I'm in like the place where I need to be.
Yeah, that's what's
so
up.
What place is better than where Joey Ace is?
I like the way you think. Exactly.
Yep.
The confidence. It's a confidence. Where and where does your persona, where does it come from? Because we talked about this earlier with promos and being able to cut one, or being comfortable enough to cut a promo, but you exude confidence, and that's something that can't be taught. So where does that exactly come from?
When we were talking about the upbringing part,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Like if you come from something like that, like what's the worst? You just came out of the worst. What can get any worse than that? It's just like yeah, like that's where it comes from. It's like, all right, I've made it through that. This is like a piece of cake. I'm happy to be here. This is great. This is where I need to be. This is where I belong. This is where I want to be. So yeah, that's where it comes from. Just like all of that struggle and all of that, you have to be scrappy. And it's just like, all right, I overcame this, I overcame that. What's next?
What's one piece of advice that you've received, over the years, that's really stuck with you, that you hold deep within your heart, that you carry with you, whether it's through matches, whether it's traveling, whether it's just everyday life?
Oh man. So ironically enough, two people. So my grandma in Spanish would say, "Echa pa'lante," keep going. right?
Mm.
Thank God for her. God bless her soul. The second person who was just tell me that was Chris Jericho. And ironically, right? So remember his Lion's Tail book, the first book he wrote?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I went to a book signing, and it was at J&R Music and Computer World, where it used to be in Park Row in Lower Manhattan. And I remember me going there really quick and like having a friend, some girl I befriended that would go to all the signings and shows. She held a spot for me in line. So I get there, I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. I remember getting her Wendy's. And I was like, I'm gonna get this book signed really quick because I didn't want to stay in line. I had work. I'm like, all right, she's gonna do that. She'll just let me know where she's at. We go, I get my book signed, and I remember this is before I started like I think I had just started wrestling.
Mm.
I remember like he's like, hey, what's up, man? And I'm like, hey, I'm like, I just started training. Any advice? And he goes, keep going. Signs my book. He's like, what's your name, kid? I'm like, Joe, but all books, where do you have to put it? He's like, we trying to sell it. And I'm like, nah. He's like, Joe, put Joe. He's like, all right. He's like, hey, Joe, don't stop. Don't keep going.
Mm.
Looked at me and we held the gaze and I was like, cool. Folded up, like closed the book, said goodbye to I remember her friend, her name was Stephanie. All right, bye, Stephanie. I just kept moving and I was like, oh man. And then 11 years later, I'm on AEW with Chris Jericho. Dope. Um, yeah, that came full circle. But yeah, don't keep going. Like guys are gonna fall. Like you're gonna like, ah man, like I don't think I could do this, or you have lapses of like you're not confident, not sure of yourself. You maybe get a little depressed about it, but just keep going. But don't think of so much also of the big. I gotta get to this. I'm gonna main event WrestleMania. Like it's a big thing. It's like a big thing to think about. There's all these little cool things that happen on the way there that you got to sit down and enjoy. And if you think about that big thing, you ain't gonna really think about like, all right, the show in Brooklyn that you have in front of 200 people at whatever high school, and like the time that you're gonna have there, the little camaraderie with the guys and the boys and the girls that you're hanging out with, and the match itself. You don't think about that and just stay present and make where you're at the best thing because those people bought tickets to see you. So make it so it's like the dopest thing ever.
My goodness. I mean, did you get a chance to talk to Chris Jericho?
Yeah,
And did he remember you, or did you mention that moment?
I didn't mention that moment. So I'm not gonna play anything else. Keep
Well,
that.
that experience like being at All Elite and just being in the atmosphere and taking it all in.
Oh, girl, that's for another podcast, boo. I'll have you go through the whole like. That was a great week. Because I also did a New Japan camp that the day before. Was it the day before? I think it was the day before.
Okay.
So think about this. I live in New York City, right? I live in Queens.
Yes.
My New Japan camp the day before was in Raleigh, North Carolina. And somehow I made it back home just to fly to Cleveland in the same like 36 hours. I won't we'll talk about that one time.
Amen. That sounds fantastic. And congratulations. That's huge, Joey. You're doing really great things. And it sounds like just the person that you are, your hard work ethic, everything that you've done to get to this point, it's paying off. And kudos to you because it's a tough journey. It's not easy, as you very well know.
Mm-hmm.
So my last question for you is, and I should have asked this earlier, but I'm like, you know what, we'll leave it for the end. It could be a fun thing. If there's any wrestler that you haven't been in the ring with, who would it be and why?
I haven't been in the ring
That
with
you
like wrestling or like haven't had a match with.
that you would love to. Who would it be and why?
Man, I think because we're talking about him, Jericho would be dope.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's just one of those things where like I signed my book, I watched him at the Garden, and then to walk out, and then him at at AEW, and then talk back. Yeah, Jericho. Yeah.
That would be really amazing. Just a
That would be what? That would be epic.
promo right there. That's the whole origin story. Like I met
Yeah.
him at the book signing 11 years
He
ago.
was a piece of garbage.
That would be really cool. That would be really, really cool.
Scribbled in my book and said, "Get lost, kid."
So, what are your last thoughts? Anything else you want to tell your fans, or even Mike Law, if there's something you want to tell?
I'm starting my podcast, so it's off the top rope with Joey Ace. I'm have an outline of the seasons and episodes in it. I'll put that on my Facebook. So if you guys don't have my Facebook, you'll find me on Joey Ace. If there's way too many people and you don't have a friend invite, just I think you could subscribe to me, and then bam, you'll see the notifications, everything come up. You can find me on Twitter at Joey Ace 1988, and then add me on Instagram at Joey Ace 88, and then I'll have all that stuff there, like in the coming like days and weeks.
Fantastic, fantastic. And we can't wait to hear more, Joey. It sounds like things are really taking off for you in a whole new way. And this seems to be a brand new chapter for Joey Ace, the 5-star stud. And we can't wait to see what you're going to be doing next. So thank you very much, Joey. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Reuniting with you, and hopefully very soon it will be in person and we can have another amazing discussion.
Yes, that'd be dope.
Kudos. And thank you all for watching another amazing episode of The Everyday Fan, where we have great conversations with your favorite wrestlers that you can definitely pay attention more to, get to know. And if you are in any of the areas where these shows are happening, go check out a show if you feel comfortable doing so. Things are opening back up, and I'm sure all of these wonderful athletes would love to see you there in the audience. Thanks again, and we'll see you later.